Welcome back to the weekend wrap. No production, just my thoughts. As always, please like and subscribe if you have a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It's appreciated. Now, this is pretty much going to be dominated by one talking point. I didn't really get a chance to watch the GBM sports card that took place on the Zone. I think it was Friday night. I also didn't get a chance to look through the entire Nielsen boxing live stream that was taking place. I think that one was actually happening in Ipswich, but I do need to check that out. Elise Tierney, I think, was on the card fighting for like a Commonwealth silver or something. So I need to check that out and then get in touch with her. We need to do our follow-up from the previous interview that we conducted. I think it was back at the end of 2023 or the start of 2024. But Frank Warren, Queensbury, Manchester, took place last night. I guess that's pretty much where we're gonna go. And I didn't see any of the prelims. I didn't see anything further down the card except for I saw bits and pieces of the Zach Parker fight. I didn't see the entire thing, but I think I saw like the last 4, 5 rounds, 6 rounds. Look, long story short, I never really rated Zach Parker before, and I rate him even less now. Ever since the John Ryder defeat, yeah, his career has nosedived. So I guess sometimes it is correct when they say, you know, if you have those domestic fights too soon, the rebuild or the way you have to rebuild can be arduous, and it doesn't look like he's getting to any levels because this fight was sloppy, it was messy, eye busted up. He looked tired from about the 4th round from what I saw. Loads of just sort of falling in, trying to collapse the pocket, trying to smother, push the opponent back. It was just horrible to watch. So yeah, he's going to majorly have to step it up if he's trying to change anyone else's perceptions about what he's going to do moving forward. I have a very actually, I have no doubts in my mind that Hutchinson probably would have beat the brakes off of him. So it's maybe a good thing that he got that shoulder injury. Then let's go to, I saw Jack Rafferty against Reece McMillan. Now, this is kind of where I started my live stream from. I wasn't planning on watching any of the undercard fights, I'm gonna be real, but this one happened. It was a decent enough scrap. McMillan had pretty good looking fundamentals, but he just had no power and he had no real reach. The counter punching was quite good. Sometimes he was punching in between the shots of Jack Rafferty, but Rafferty he clearly had a bit of pop on the jab, a little bit of pop on the backhand, and ultimately McMillan just didn't have the necessary power or skills to be able to keep him at bay. So it just always kind of felt like he was fighting against the tide, especially from about round 3 onwards. And lo and behold, that's basically what happened. The end of the 6th round, I was saying on the stream, his corner might as well pull him out now because he hasn't won any of the rounds. He's getting busted up. He doesn't have the power to turn this around to be a one punch. At absolute best, the most he would now be able to hope for is like a draw, but everything was just going downhill from like round 5. So they let him go back out. But then, you know, ultimately round 7 came. Shots upon shots were just ringing in. He was covering up behind the guard. He was trying to throw backup pieces, but by this time, the resistance, the will, the energy had just been beat out of him. And to the point where when the referee was about to jump in, the corner actually threw in the towel. And the referee split them up and he was like, "Are you sure you want me to stop it?" And they was like, "Yeah, let's stop that fight." And, you know, it was what it was. So Rafferty, I think that makes him, he's now 25-0 with 15 KOs, I believe. Because he was 24-0 with, no, 25-0 with 16 KOs. Because he was 24-0 with 15 KOs previously. So I'd seen him once before, I think. It was a decent enough showing. There's still some major flaws that I saw there, which obviously maybe someone a little bit better with a bit more power could exploit. But he's now signed to Queensbury. So I guess we'll see what he can make of that. But he's in that the super lightweight division. Yeah, let's see how well he does moving forward. Right, then we got to Nathan Heaney versus Sofian Kati. And obviously initially on my predictions league, I just said, okay, well, Heaney should win. Unanimous decision I put down. From the first round, I saw the fight. I said, okay, Heaney's actually doing well on the front foot here. He's looking quite comfortable and he looks like he's affecting this fight, pushing Carty back a little bit. But from the second round, you saw Carty, he never looked panicked at any one stage. There was never a shot that really looked like it bothered him. And it's like in that second round, he just decided, okay, I can feel the shots that you've got. I can feel the power you have. I'm just going to edge forward a little bit. Let me throw something and see how you react. And it's like every time he would throw the backhand would miss. But whenever they was doing jab for jab, that's when he was getting the best of Nathan Heaney. And that's what was pushing Nathan Heaney back and throwing him off center. And then I think I noticed little bits of blood starting to trickle out of his nose, I think, towards the end of the second round. And then by the third round, the nose started leaking quite badly. And from there, I said, oh, okay, Heaney might be in problems here. And I'm trying to remember how I even had the fight scored, because I wasn't really scoring it properly, but I was making kind of a mental note. And I think the first 3 rounds, I said, okay, these are Heaney's. But then I think round 4 for me was Carty. I think round 5 again, I was looking at saying, okay, Heaney. Then round 6 was Carty. And then round 7, obviously, when the fight ended up getting stopped, was a big Carty round. Yeah, look, Nathan Heaney, he might be a bit shop-worn at this point. He might, have no punch resistance left. I'm not sure, but he's 35 now. He won the British title, which was always his goal and achievement. I don't think he ever really expected to get beyond that level. But he's done that. He still draws a good crowd. Maybe will they still ride with him if he tries to go out for one more? Possibly. But at 35, maybe that's it. I guess we'll have to wait and see. I didn't hear any post-fight press conferences, any post-fight interviews, so I have no idea what he's planning on doing next. But whatever it is, wish him well. I'll leave that one there. Then we got to main event. Well, this is obviously where the sort of the bulk of everything picked up. You had Derek Chisora against Otto Wallin. Obviously, Derek Chisora very, very emotional walking into the arena. Broke out in tears initially, saying, "Oh, this is the last time I'm going to be fighting in the UK. Last time fighting in Manchester." Everyone was there. I saw Lethal Bizzle. I saw Skepta, Tiny Temper. I wouldn't be surprised if JME was somewhere in the building. Dillian White was there. Joe Joyce, Anthony Yard, and Tunde Ajayi was there. It was, very, very interesting. Some of the people that turned up and turned out. But let's talk about the fight. First things first. Look, there is no controversy on like scorecards. There's maybe a bit of controversy on one of the cards themselves, which was 114, 112. So that basically denotes that judge had the fight a draw, if not for the 2 knockdowns of Otto Wallin. Me personally, I've heard some people say, look, should never judge again, etc., etc. And I can understand that, because in isolation, you look at the fight, how it played out, and yes, it does look like a very questionable scorecard where they were trying their hardest to give Otto Wallin the win. But if you guys were watching there was a couple of times where I was like, I'm going to give that round to Chisora. I feel like he just did a bit more, or I feel like he just nicked it at the end or something. There was a couple rounds where he did that, where neither guy was doing much. Wallin was maybe popping the jab out, and he was getting some success, but it just wasn't anything really sustained. And then Chisora would just lunge in, fall in, sort of pound away to the body a bit, throw some windmill hooks above, up top. Most would get caught, but it looks like activity. And, maybe 1 or 2 bits or pieces get through. So in those moments, I can see where a judge may be looking from a different angle, doesn't see the connections on those, and thinks that Wallin did just a bit more. Now, me personally, I didn't find 6 rounds to give him, but I did, in theory. There was a 5th round that I could have potentially given him, but I swung it to Derek Chisora right at the end because of one of those salvos that he put in right at the end of the round. Even though Wallin had basically done so much more work and been so much more successful for the rest of it, but that one little moment there took it away from him because it also disrupted him, knocked him off balance, landed a cleaner power punches in that moment. So I could see if they gave it a 115, 111, I could understand. But yeah, 114, 112 did seem a bit, a bit too generous. But I've seen a lot worse, so that's not the one scorecard I'm gonna start lambasting on the show. But yeah, look, I had it scored 116, 110, exactly the same as one of the judges. It would be good to know if they actually scored all of the rounds the way that I scored them, or if there was a couple rounds different in there. But ultimately, what I want to say about the fight is it wasn't a good fight to watch. I've seen a couple people say, "Oh yeah, Chisora was good, Wallin was poor, or Wallin was terrible." No. Like, both guys were terrible. Both guys were poor. Like, Derek Chisora had no balance from round 1 up until the end of the fight. Although apparently, I think he said something afterwards that his ears popped or something, or he didn't really have his equilibrium from the 3rd round on, and it only just popped again or something. So maybe that might make an argument. But even for rounds 1 and 2, where Derek can normally sort of find his way to lunge in and dip underneath and spring up, like, everything just looked slow. Everything just looked like it hurt. Like, just to bend down looked like it hurt. To walk across the ring just looked like it hurt. They just didn't like there was any balance, any equilibrium. The shots were a lot slower than usual until it's only about sort of round 5, maybe round I think it was round 5 onwards, where his arms actually looked like they had some snap in them, and even though the legs looked like they were gone, the arms looked like they started to work again. So that the older you get, it really does take a bit more time for that motor to start getting into gear. But that's just what it looked like. It just looked like he was cumbersome, just clunky, didn't really know. It almost felt like he could barely stand up at times. And then on the other hand, you've got Otto Wallin, who, being the bigger guy, the taller, rangier guy, barely wanted to use his jab to keep distance, barely wanted to throw his backhand. Like, it's just... It was a frustrating watch, because maybe he needed a slightly bigger ring than what was there, because it looked like it was about 18 by 18. Maybe he wanted 20 by 20 or 22 by 22. But you kind of know what Chisora's going to do, and you know what you need to do to get the best of him. Like, why did that backhand not fly out a lot more? And ultimately, Derek Chisora is not a counterpuncher. He might wait for you to throw a shot, and then once your shot lands, or if he can ride the shot, he might try to come back with his own. But he doesn't counterpunch. You can keep his arms holstered if you're being active, because he's going to be in that cross guard. He's not going to have the opportunity to throw shots at you. It was just a very lackluster performance in the first half, especially towards, I would say, after he cut Chisora in, I think it was the 3rd round, and it was very sneaky the way he cut him, because it wasn't by a punch and it wasn't by a head clash. It was actually, he used the wrapping on his on the glove, the tape on the glove, and as he was coming across, he kind of went across Chisora, and you could see where the tape, it looked like in the little grip, the little edge, like, is where he's gone across his face. And that's what's opened up that first cut over the eye. And then he had that cut. I couldn't hear on the commentary. I wasn't watching, so I don't know if the ref had said it was caused by a punch, or if it was caused by head clash or accidental foul. Obviously, the doctor checked it, said no, he's okay, he's fine to carry on and continue. But from there, you can see this guy's wounded, constantly blinking. I can see it from from far out on the hard cam on the TV. So you're in the ring. You can see that this guy can barely see out of that eye right about now. Why is that jab and that backhand not just targeting that eye constantly? Pushing him back to the ropes, like using your arm, using your forearm just to get into the cut. Chisora was being dirty at points. Why weren't you being dirty? If you want to win, right? So you would assume that you can't win a points decision right here. He said to you, "We're not going to box. We are going to fight. All that boxing rubbish is not gonna happen here." So you kind of knew what type of fight he was looking for. And what makes it frustrating is from about round 6, 7 onwards, Chisora basically was out on his feet. He was doing the whole sit on the ropes, do that little coil thing, and I knew that Wallin obviously saw it and like, okay, no, I've seen you do this before. Like, I'm not gonna get too greedy right about now. But even in those moments, like, all you had to do, work that jab, throw that backhand out there, like, angle off to the side when he's coiled, even turn to the other side, because if he's angling his body to this way, that means he's trying to throw across that way to get to you. All right, angle yourself so that his shot, now he's got to adjust his body over here to try to throw that shot. By the time he does that, you shoot that left straight down the pipe. There were so many options and opportunities that he had to do more than what he did. And again, it's a case of he would do some decent enough work in those middle to late rounds. He would, the first minute and a half of the round he's working, but then he just allows himself to get dominated and taken back over towards the sort of the last 30 seconds, 20 seconds, while not doing enough to win the round conclusively and decisively. So no sympathy for him. And, it's almost like he's got that imposter syndrome at this point in time. Like, he doesn't really believe that he's as good as maybe he should be. And I knew about who Otto Wallin was well before the Tyson Fury fight. I knew who he was. I knew what he was about, and I knew technically he was a pretty good fighter. But the skills look like they've regressed a little bit. I think maybe the hunger's regressed. Maybe he doesn't have that drive and desire in him anymore after the AJ fight. Maybe that was where he thought, okay, this is my time, and then AJ broke his confidence, broke his spirit, and now it's like, okay. But in the Dominic Brazil fight, he threw good shots in that fight. He actually hurt Murat Gassi of letting go of his power of the left hand and the right hook. So the fact that you couldn't do something similar to a Derek Chisora, who more times than not was off balance, could barely stand up, it wouldn't have taken much to knock him down a couple times. And this is coming from someone who actually picked Chisora to win and wanted Chisora to win. I'm not a fan of his like that, but I wanted him to win for the narrative. I thought it was good TV, but the fight itself I just thought the fight was awful. If I'm being honest, it was. Yeah, obviously there was those good moments where the 2 knockdowns happened and stuff, but yeah, it was just a sloppy mess. And those 2 style matchups, they just can't be put together again. So now we're looking at possible what number 50 might be like for Chisora. He went in the ring after he had Lethal B, he had Tiny Temper, and someone else. I can't remember who else he had holding up a frame, but there was a frame of Alexander Usyk, there was a frame of Daniel Dubois, and there was a frame of Anthony Joshua. He's asking the crowd, who do you guys want to see me fight? I tell you now, I don't want him to fight any of those people. Like, looking how he looked in this fight, Alexander Usyk will roast him this time. He'll probably stop him on this occasion. He won't even be worried about those first rounds, because looking at the way Derek was moving, it was just bad. Even a faded, no confidence version of Anthony Joshua spins Derek Chisora's head clean off his shoulders by how he looked and how he moved. That cross guard thing, even the leaping hooks, like, Joshua would get out of the way of those. He's a better athlete than Wallin. Like, he's quicker than Wallin in that sense, and he's not going to be afraid to let that right hand go, even though him and Derek are big friends. Like he's not. If anything, he's probably going to look to try to land a one punch hit a quitter to knock Derek out cold, rather than to sustainably try to just beat him down for 10 rounds. Because if every round that you're just allowing him to stay in there and you're carrying him, quote unquote, he's still taking more damage, unless all you're going to do is hit him to the body. So yeah, I think Joshua would try to end it the similar fashion to the way Dillian White ended that second fight, where at least that way it's one bit of shock damage and that's it. Daniel Dubois, that also is a horrible night for Chisora. He probably doesn't make it out of the third round against like Daniel Dubois, as nasty and aggressive as he can be. They basically will both be fighting the similar type of fight in how aggressive and how they push forward. But Daniel is just twice as quick, hits twice as hard, I reckon, and won't care about the old man that's in front of him. Like, I don't think Daniel has the social awareness to think, let me not end this guy's life. And I think Daniel would literally try to do that. So I don't want to see any of those. They spoke about obviously the Dillian White trilogy. I can see that. The Deontay Wilder fight, admittedly, from back in 2022, I said I want to see Chisora versus Wilder, and I picked Chisora to beat him. And I know a lot of people looked at me like I was an idiot, like I was crazy. Fast forward to the end of 2023, and then fast forward to last year, all of a sudden everyone else is calling for Wilder versus Chisora. So I just saw it before everyone else did. But that being said, the Chisora I saw yesterday, he's not quick enough to evade that. He gets caught by that right hand. He might be able to survive early, but unless he manages to take Wilder out straight away or damages him, like that hand will land, because there was times he was even walking side on, looking at the opponent with his hands down. He just was doing a lot of things wrong, but only because it was Otto Wallin that was in the ring. He weren't even doing those things against Kubrat Pulev. So I have no doubts in my mind that that's still a dangerous fight, but he will still have a bit more chance of winning that. The fight, though, that I would like to see, I put it on X earlier. I think someone else has already put it up as well as an idea. I would say Chisora versus Pulev for the third fight. You have that whether it's in Africa, whether it's in America, whether it's somewhere else in Europe. Riyadh season, maybe. But Chisora, Pulev 3 for the WBA regular world title. As you know, Chisora's never held a world title before. I know that it's the regular title, it's the secondary title. It's not seen as a proper world title, but they'll market it like it is. They'll say, oh, it's his opportunity to become a world champion in his final fight in the sport, and you do all of that marketing. Outside of that, he won a very contentious decision in the second fight. Pulev, I thought, won the second fight, and I think Pulev quite comfortably won the first fight between them, but it's one apiece. This is actually the only trilogy that Derek Chisora can have that he can actually win. He had the trilogy with Tyson Fury, lost all 3 of those fights. He's had 2 fights with Dillian White, lost both of those. He's had 2 fights with Joseph Parker, lost both of those. So rematching any of those 2 does nothing, because even if you get a win back, they still won the series. But this one's 1-1. This is the opportunity you get to run it back and actually win one of your trilogies. And I think it makes perfect sense. For the narrative, he can go out as a world champion as well, all of that stuff. I think that's the way that you do it. So I know the people he put in the ring, none of those 3. You've got, like I said, you've got Wilder, you've got White, you've got Pulev for me, but there's also that outside, the shout of maybe Ngannou if he wants to come back, because he fought Fury, he fought Joshua. Maybe he would say, well, it was the big 3 before. It was Fury, Joshua, Wilder, so maybe give me Wilder instead. But I think Chisora would take that fight, and it would be fairly evenly matched in terms of skills. Or at least, I would say matched in terms of skills would be pretty interesting. So those are kind of my thoughts of who I would think would be worth seeing next. But with that being said, look, there wasn't much else to talk about throughout the night. There will be a Fight Talk Live, but it may end up being through my channel and then distribute it around the other channels as well. I'm trying to work that out at the minute. There's a couple issues in the background. Obviously, as most of you know, the original channel was actually accidentally deleted, so another one is in the process of being created. I think I've actually set one up now. It's just about trying to populate it again, and sort of get to, you know, sort of get the subscriber count back up. So when that does come around, I'll drop the links. Please go back and resubscribe to it. And yeah, we hope not to have any more issues moving forward. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share. I'll catch you a bit later on tonight, but until then, peace.